And didn't your dad once tell you that to be successful, you had to hire someone much smarter than you?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did tell me that. I don't know, but he doesn't say.
I think it's working.
Okay, welcome back. It is the Built by Vitality podcast. I am Steve Pinkerton. I'm sitting next to Mr.
Go ahead.
Phillip Lewis. And we have a guest today, and that guest is Laura B. You can pronounce her last name. Would you do that for us?
Actually, I was hoping you would do it because I've never figured out how to say it.
Let's try it.
It is Brunnhoelzl, but I'd like you to say it.
Brunnhoelzl.
Yeah.
Could you spell it for us?
Brunhoelzl.
Okay. Very, not even close. And this is going to be an interesting podcast because, since we started this, Laura has been here at Vitality and she's ran pretty much everything that you can think of. But what I wanted to talk about for the most part today is what every entrepreneur at some point or the other is going to ask themselves. And that is inevitably, how do I replicate myself? How do I create another one of me that can do twice as much? And I think the majority of times people, when it comes to that question, out of the fear of, I don't want to take one step back to take a couple steps forward, they wait and wait and wait because they're afraid to make that, what for the most part is the first hire. I would say that's usually what someone is going to do in the very beginning. If you're a one-man shop, the purpose of hiring somebody up front is not to clean the toilets or, inconsequential things. They are to manage the same thing that you are so you can kind of lighten the workload. So I thought what we could do today is we can do a little flashback, maybe back into my mindset of why it took me as long as it did to hire that person, and then what it was like for Laura, because I think what you're going to find is hopefully she holds back on some of the stories that she has. But I think what you're going to find is every entrepreneur is going to have the same challenges, and that's letting go of control of anything. When you build something and it's your baby, it's very difficult to let go of that and let someone else take over that. Now, over the years, it's been 11 years, that has gotten much easier for me to do. And I think that's one of the themes that you'll hear as we kind of drag Laura through memory lane here is the difference in the climate that she had 10 years ago to what it is now. I think she would admit that there's a lot more autonomy and there's a lot more responsibility that I'm okay with giving up than there was in the beginning. Do you remember the first couple of weeks that you were...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like it was yesterday, right?
I also promised to be on my best behavior for this podcast, so
that's maybe why it took.
I'm really going to try here.
LB was the 17th or 18th episode to make sure that she was going to be on our best behavior. Is that what she's saying? That took that long to convince Philip, the producer?
Yeah. I think I can do it.
You can do it.
The fact that I'm a replication of Steve in his eyes is also is scaring me a little bit.
So explain to us, I would say that I probably hired Laura a year and a half after opening.
It wasn't much after a year.
And I would say that I probably could have and should have done that even earlier than I did, just because of the simple fact that you can't do it all yourself. And that's what I forced that for a long time, the first year and a half, where I was trying to run the operations and the finances and the all the new member stuff, and it became to be just too much. But you get so used to it, you can't imagine not doing it. So that's when I hired Laura, and she can kind of just, I guess, recap some of your thoughts on how and what your roles and how they kind of progressed, I guess, would be a good kind of.
Do we start with like pay grade or like hours
like I
or
said,
like what? Because
this is one of those
you
where
didn't exactly hire me for just you at the time when I first started.
It was, but this was setting the stage. This was 2010. And, you know, so what happened was we had another gym, Ultimate CrossFit, and I was friends with the guy that owned that, and he came to me and said, man, I really need someone to help out with the gym. I said, gosh, so do I. And we decided that it might be good, since we were using the same member management software. Imagine if we could get one person to split the time between the two gyms, which in my brain at the time sounded like a great idea. Looking back on it, that was the most illogical plan I've ever had in the 11 years of running business. But anyway,
it worked. I drove down to South End twice a week, stayed at Vitality the other 3. It was good. No, I mean, it was definitely, you could tell it was hard for Steve to give up a lot of his responsibility at the beginning. I mean, to say he micromanaged
Was he frugal when he hired you?
Oh, we could go down that road if he wants to.
Okay.
But, yeah. I have a couple more zeros on my paycheck right now. Let's just put it that way. But
I think that's the other, you talk about, you don't know what you don't know as a business owner. And the one thing, and this is what I talk to most people that I do consulting with on the gym side, most everybody will, I wouldn't say undervalue the first couple people they hire. They just won't compensate them in a way that makes sense, because how they're going to rationalize hiring somebody is by trying to control the expense of that, the payroll expense. And they do that by underpaying people, not because I undervalued Laura, but he
didn't know, but I'm still here.
Yeah.
So it worked. Something worked.
It worked.
Okay.
Yeah. So what do you say the roles were in the beginning for you think? When
Steve
you
had a
first started?
spreadsheet for everything. Everything.
He still does, don't he?
Yeah, but he also didn't know what a Google Drive was when I started. So I actually take a little bit of responsibility for that. So we got that, but he literally had a spreadsheet for everything. And everything you did in that gym or that office got tracked in all these spreadsheets until I could finally slowly start wean them off a little bit.
So every Sunday when he sends the email out that says, hey guys, programming's updated in the drive.
Everything.
Let me know if you got any questions. That really came from you.
If someone walked through that door, they were getting put in a spreadsheet to everything.
Okay.
But, it's where we got today.
And I think that's one of the things we talked about with taking a step back to take a couple steps forward. We all try to do and manage a smaller group in a different way. So if Laura was managing 40 clients, she can do that through a spreadsheet. She can do that through her mind saying, oh, hey, so-and-so is leaving or whatever, I need to contact them. But once you get to 100 in the fitness world, 100 members is kind of where the ceiling for a lot of people is, because they're not, if you don't transition away from those archaic ways of, I'm going to just create a spreadsheet and have some post-it notes. And in my mind, it was a very complex and repeatable process, but it wasn't. I couldn't do that with over 100 members. So when Laura got here, that was one of the things that helped us grow and be able to manage a much bigger membership base. Was I had to get out of me being the only one that created this spreadsheet that I could understand, but it was impossible for me to keep up with. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are going to struggle with that because they develop this process, but they know, just like I did, if I was going to hire Laura and have her take over that responsibility, then we were going to figure out a different way to do it, and it was going to slow us down. It was going to be inefficient for a little while, but in the end, it allowed us to grow more than that. So I think that is a perfect example. The first one is, man, you've got to let someone else look at it. And if it doesn't make sense to them, it doesn't matter if it makes sense to me, but you got to come up with a way that you can sustain growth for more than, 6 or 8 months.
And it worked. We fixed a lot of those systems. A lot of them were repetitive, but we got it down, to some smarter plays there. But it also helped. It was fun to see Steve get to take a step back and not have to deal with every, interaction with everyone that came across. I got to buffer that. I still play bad cop a lot here. It's not my favorite job, but it is. I mean, you need you definitely need someone like that, because that's going to wear and tear on you, day in and day out, especially with a new business there.
And I think that when you're looking, if you want to get into the next step of this, is how do you identify who the right person is?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
That's tough, right?
Yeah.
I think that
You gotta be like perfect.
almost the most important part of this is someone has the personality and the thick enough skin to play center field for all of your clients, whether it's a gym or whatever it is, because inevitably we all know if you're in a service-based business, everyone's not always going to be happy. And the 10% of the people that you have that aren't happy will overshadow the 90% that love what you do. And I think that it's really important that someone else handles some of that other than the owner, because I think it's really hard. It took me a long time, and maybe this will be another thing that Laura can talk about, is I think she knows how sensitive I was to every issue, every complaint, everything that came in. I mean, it would ruin my week if someone wasn't happy or whatever. But Laura could then take that and deflect those, and she could handle the ones that she could handle. And then I only got the ones that she thought were big enough for us both to sit down and say, okay, well, here's what we need to look at. And because there's a lot of things that they're just little tiny things, but they add up over and over again into a much bigger issue. And I think that's what that first person that you hire needs to be able to do. They need to have the ability to take some of that from you and shelter you and shield you from some of that stuff.
How did you find Laura? You didn't bring that up. Was she a member, or did you put an ad out? How'd you find her?
An ad, yeah.
An ad,
Okay.
yeah. We put an ad in the newspaper.
Okay.
In the help wanted section.
All right.
Why don't you talk about that, Laura?
No, I had some great friends that went to Vitality, and I was actually doing a little work for them at the time. And part of our job included a bartered membership, so I started working out there. And next thing I know, he wanted me for an hour or so a week to help him, clean up some spreadsheets and just, I think.
Fast forward to now where she works 90 hours a week,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think that's, and we won't get into where you're going to find people, because I think that's the one thing I've learned in 11 years is the harder you're looking for somebody, the harder it is to find somebody. Mm-hmm. And you hope that the right people will attract the right people. And when you look at this, I'm sure there are times when Laura sat back and said, gosh, I don't know if I want the stress or the all this associated with this obsessive compulsive person that I work with. But I also think that we had a really good group of people, and if you can plug the right people in, and that's one of the equations. I talk about that with Philip all the time. If I didn't think Philip was going to get along with the group that we had here at Vitality, I wouldn't have hired him. And it didn't matter how talented I thought he was; it wouldn't have mattered. And I think that's sometimes people overlook that when they're trying to find the right fit. As much as qualifications don't matter, I think the personality side of it does, because that drives the culture of everything. And if it doesn't matter how good Laura was at her job, if she didn't enjoy the group, the people that we're working with and she's working with, it wouldn't last the 10 years that it has. But I don't want to get too far into where you're going to find those people. Hopefully you're lucky enough that if you have really good people, those really good people will attract other good people, and it's just that sooner or later the right fit's going to happen. But we have to, as business owners, we have to be ready to make that first step, because someone really smart told me that the opportunity of a lifetime must take place within the lifetime of that opportunity. All right, so if I find somebody like Laura and it's a great fit, everything's great, but I drag my feet, well, guess what? That's an opportunity of a lifetime to find somebody that can really fit in, but that opportunity has a lifespan. And if I drag my feet too long, well, guess what? Someone else is going to find her, and they're going to take her. They're going to take that person. Yeah. And that doesn't mean you have to jump on it before you weigh all the options. But most people will drag their feet. And what do? They wait until they absolutely have to have somebody, and they're not going to find somebody by then.
And didn't your dad once tell you that to be successful, you had to hire someone much smarter than you?
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did tell me that. I don't know, but he doesn't
I think
say.
it's working.
I don't know if that was. He might.
I don't know.
In his case, that might have worked. He's got a lot of people that are smarter than him around him. But here it's really just you and LB. You would definitely fall into that group.
Oh, yeah,
definitely.
That's why I hired Agnew underneath me,
If that was, I don't know. If we were talking MLM right now, one of those structures, and she had Agnew underneath, you might just have to cut it off, start with a new tree. But I don't know. You got Agnew under you and Spencer under Phillip, so it's pretty strong.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't
get
any better than
stronger,
that.
I think.
So then, the other thing that this does too is. It allows you, everybody talks about this all the time. Every business podcast or leadership group that you're in, everybody talks about it. It's, getting to work on your business instead of in your business. And the reality is, until you make that first hire, you'll never be able to do that. You'll never be able to work on your business. You'll constantly be in it.
And it's been really cool to see Steve transition over the past 10 years because he has come a super long way. Some days I'm like, what, do you even own this business anymore? But he's right. I had this, don't get me wrong. I would get super defensive when people were, upset with this place or with him or every move he makes. I'm like, don't forget that I'm the one that has to defend you with every, decision that you make in this business. Because we do take it personally. But I did have to put up some sort of barrier, like he said, because I had to deflect so much on a daily basis that he has no idea about. And it definitely got easier over time. And it definitely got a lot cooler to see him to be able to, go on vacations, which I don't know if he's going on anymore anytime soon. But, or spend more time at home or not, stress over things constantly, came into work with a better attitude, have fun. You have definitely seen it happen over the past few years.
And I think when you look at another personality trait of that first hire, it's easy to want to hire somebody that's going to agree with everything you say. That makes it very easy for people, and I can see why people kind of default to that. And in the Marine Corps, that was a really big leadership trait, was listening to those above and below you and being able to take constructive criticism and being okay with that, because nobody wants that yes man. And I think in Laura's case, that may have been the most important asset that she brought was, for anyone that knows Laura, she does not pull punches that often.
Hey.
She is going to tell you how it is. And I still remember that the funniest conversation I think I've ever been a part of was when Brent came to start working with us, and we were working out, and Brent was getting just smacked around by the girls and everybody in the gym. And he goes up to me and Laura one day. We were working out, and he goes, "Man, I think I'm out today." And we're like, "Oh, dude, what happened? You hurt?" He's like, "Yeah, I tore my hand up really bad. I came out to go grab the bar." And he showed us, and it wasn't his fault. It was he was brand new to the CrossFit thing, and he had like a little bit of a callus forming on his hand, like it wasn't ripped, it wasn't anything. And I was like, "Oh man, yeah, take it easy. Don't let that rip." Laura looked at me, and she looked at Bird, and she's like, "Are you kidding me? What are you talking about? Stop being a baby." And Brent's like, "Oh, okay, well, I'll work out. Yeah, I'll work out." But that's just one. I think you need that person that's gonna bring you back to reality of me more than anybody. You can convince yourself of anything, and you can convince yourself that it's the best plan in the world. And then what you'll do is you'll go ask people that you think are going to agree with you, because you just need a little bit of confirmation, just a little bit. And Laura was somebody that. She would never not speak her mind, but she did it in a way that it wasn't like, "Hey, your plan sucks." It was, "Hey, remember," and sometimes it was, "Remember that, yeah, I'm the one that's going to get the emails. I got to be able to justify what we're doing and be able to articulate why we're making that decision. And when you look at it that way, it really changes the lens that I was looking at any decision with. And I think that is what makes a really important part of that hiring process, is someone that's going to question everything. I mean, really, there's nothing she shouldn't question, because she's the one in the back end that's gonna talk and lay this plan out to everybody. So.
What's been the worst part of your time here at Vitality?
Oh man, we go through a lot of phases. I mean, it started with.
I'm talking about like a time where you're like, you know what? Today's the day I'm walking in his office and I'm gonna be like, you know what? 2 weeks.
Just before, usually people say, "Hey, what's like the greatest thing about this? What's the greatest thing?" Philip comes right out of the gate.
Viewers don't want to hear that.
Oh,
I mean, we've had ups and downs, starting from the fact that it was about 27 degrees in our office for 5 months out of the year, that I would have to go home and take a bath or go sleep in my car on my lunch break to regain feeling. I was typing with gloves on. You could see your breath. My office at the top of his steps. So we did that for a while.
My office is now, but it's at 73.
And I just thought that was normal. So we stuck that out for a while.
Do you think it's funny, LB, about the new guys? Well, I call them new guys. I mean,
I think it's cold here.
That think that they have it rough here.
Yeah, no.
We went through. I mean, I think that comes back to, you talk about frugality. I think that was something that Laura didn't sign up for. No one really signed up for how obsessive compulsive I was with the finances. And I think it was very difficult. And I'm not saying that any one of those decisions put us on a path to be where we are now, but that's just the way it was. And it's funny how I think everyone's got their quirks. And I think that for us is the one that will, probably be one of the. We look back now, and I still remember before the open workouts in March, we'd all go out and sit in our cars that were in the sun just to get warmed up before we start moving around. It was so cold in that facility. Man, it was cold.
I was also in an office. We all shared one office.
Oh my gosh!
Imagine all of us in one office.
In one room.
Yeah.
I wish we could put. I wish. Sometimes I wish we had a qualified enough podcast editor that could splice in
oh my gosh,
some views from the old place.
I thought about that. Yeah, if we could have a slideshow. This is going to be part one of a 75 episode.
What's the view?
Continuum here
of
our office.
Of the office with the bathroom.
Do you have that?
We've got it somewhere.
I do wonder, if you threw Agnew into that mix, how long he would have made it before we kicked him out of that spot.
I don't know if Beatty would have allowed that. I think he would have brought those shoes in one time.
I know.
And those things would have found themselves. Nate's office would have been outside somewhere. But yeah, I think that's.
But we went from that to we went to building this building, which was a day in, day out process. Yes, of never-ending decisions.
And you forget about that. I even forgot. It's been 5 years. This is
it's pretty much half and half.
January
now,
1 will be 5 years. We've been here almost as long as we were at the old place, which is mind-blowing. But you forget, I remember having to make 1,000 decisions that it was nonstop every day. And while we were doing all that, the gym was still rolling. We were still trying to do everything on top of building this place. So yeah, Laura was really, and whether she liked it or not, that was a painful process. And that's the thing. There is no separation when it comes to, the management structure and the management team of any business. It's not like you're on an island. If there's a bunch of things that are happening to you, whether they're happening to Laura or not, they're going to be affected by everybody. And I think that's
the time we cleared this land ourselves, and then we watched it grow back.
We did. Yeah, we were.
What?
We rented a.
We actually.
We rented a wood chipper with Marty, and I said, "Hey, we got some guys. We'll just go over and start loading the thing up."
Oh.
And I mean, everyone who's worked with a wood chipper knows it's probably the most dangerous machine on the planet. And we're out here just throwing them in and chipping up the whole 3.5 acre lot. Yeah.
And by guys, it was like Steve, Marty, Frank, and me. So
we didn't have a whole lot of participation from, but yeah. And then Laura's somebody. There's not a lot of people that can see too the beginning of how we did our programming, how we structured our classes. All the coaching. The coaching hires and fires that we've had. I mean, there's so much that I can't even remember, and you guys bring it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, that too, So it's interesting the things that are standing out in Laura's head versus so much of that seems like it's so long ago for me, but it's really not, What about the best? I mean, are we going to do something where we just talk about the best things about?
I still think about the wood chipper thing. Frankie out there just working the crap out of y'all.
I think half of Venture came down with like a crazy bad case of poison ivy. It felt really bad.
Frank was fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry. As most of you know, we got Jimmy John's out of it, so we're good. Any project we got sucked into, we always got Jimmy John's. Made it well worth it. Let's just put it that way. No, but as far as good things, I mean, obviously I'm still here 10 years later. I mean, there's not much I would change. Yes, you have your few hard times, but I mean, for the most part, it's been awesome growing with this same group. I think one thing that Steve prides vitality on is how long we've had our coaches. And I think we just mesh well. Many gyms, you're going to see, coaches come and go about as quick as they can. And a lot of us have been here, 5+ years now, 6+ years working together. And as I mentioned before, it's been cool to see Steve transform from something we never thought he would change out of. You become super close to all of them, to watch his family, to helping raise his girls. I mean,
who would have thought?
You do it. I've literally, they joke like jack of all trades, and I wouldn't change it for absolutely one thing, from, installing whatever I needed to install here to picking up his kids from school. I mean,
and I think that's what makes it so. I think that's what makes it interesting is you've got. It's not just. I think that's what makes it interesting from a small business perspective. You're not going to find that. And maybe you will, but you're not going to find that from your big Wells Fargo, your Bank of Americas, your big corporations, because there's just so many people. There's so much going on. I think when you get in the small business world, and what makes me love the process so much was things were so much smaller. You had the ability to have relationships with people in such a different way that you'd ever be able to do. And I think in the fitness world, it's even more so because there's not as clear of a separation between your staff and that owner, because that owner is there all the time. I'm all the time there. And I don't think, as much as it would be nice for people to think that you could run it with me not being here, and then look, this place would run fine, but it changes things if the owner's not invested. It's no different than if my tenants that I have in the building now, I'm here, so I'm 100% vested in the building, making sure that I understand everything that's going on. If I wasn't here and I was 500 miles away, I guarantee you the relationship that they would have would be different, because that owner is not involved, and the one that's making those decisions is making them from 500 miles away. So I think the same thing goes when you have an owner that truly loves being here, which I do because of the people. I think it makes things harder and easier. It just depends on which way you look at it. But now I think, what do you think, Laura, the criteria that we look at now for if we're hiring somebody? Do you think it's changed over the years?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first question, the two or three of us that sit down, is we really have to think about, are they going to mesh well with this group? No matter how qualified they are, no matter if they're going to, interact well with our members here, the lifestyle that our members have. But more importantly, I mean, we've got to make sure that you're going to be part of the squad, because, I mean, we are a very tight-knit group and we love it. And it takes one person that isn't to really kind of changed the entire tone of the entire gym. So,
and that'll goes back to the culture of your clients too. I mean, if you think about it, can not one or two people in a group change the whole dynamic of that group? And if it can happen with your clients, it can happen with your staff the same way. It just takes one person that no longer wants to be part of that team or whatever, and all of a sudden it just trickles down and affects everybody in different ways. And Laura's right. I think in most businesses, I would argue that you can teach people everything they need to know, but what you can't teach them is how to communicate well, how to just be a good person. You know, we talk about the old blue falcon, not to be a blue falcon to people, and they either have that or you don't. You can't teach that, and you pass the test, Philip, and that's why you're sitting right here.
Questionable.
I know.
Laura was a no, I was a yes, and Agnew was a yes.
Were you a no for real? Were you in that meeting about me? Oh, gosh, that's another podcast.
What meeting am I not in?
Yeah, sure. I don't know if you'd be in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
No.
Great.
So, yeah, I think, when you look at this, I think this was a good – I think that people are afraid to make the first hire. And once they make the first one, they'll make some bad ones, because what will happen is you get confident in, well, man, the first one worked out, so maybe the next 6 or 8 will be the same. And it's not like that. You realize how hard it is to find good people, and I believe that it just teaches you to appreciate the good people that you have when you find people. We all have some funny stories about people over the years that we thought were going to be great, and they didn't, and that's okay. But we can't be afraid to give up some of that control, because you never know when you are going to find someone that is the right fit. And it's not like I knew Laura was going to be the perfect fit. I needed a ton of help, and she could have worked for 6 months and then said, you know what, I can't deal with you, and didn't work. So you never know.
He became like a project of mine. How you date someone, you want to fix them.
Change them.
I was like, I'm going to work for this guy. I'm going to fix him because he's got a lot of work. But it almost it was like a challenge. I mean, we came a long way. Every day was like, I loved waking up to see how I could make his life easier, or, work on things for the business to impress him or to get the business. It really was. It was cool to see that he wanted to transition, and I was going to help make that happen.
Yeah.
And I know it was hard, because even with me getting help for what I do right now, I mean, how long did Steve tell me that I need to find someone to help me? And you don't want to. It's just easier for you to do all the work yourself.
Yeah.
But, the second you do start passing some stuff off, a lot can change.
I got to believe that you could talk to 100 business owners, and that's the one thing that they're going to say kept them from hiring somebody, is it was easier to do it themselves. And we convince ourselves that. I convince myself that all the time. And until you don't know what you don't know, and until someone takes it off your plate and you're like, man, I used to take so much pride and respond to every email immediately. And that was just the way that I thought it was, and it had to be. And then Laura started answering those emails, and I can't even explain to you. Sure, do I love talking to people from the gym? Absolutely. But the amount of time it opened up for me to build better programs, to fix things I need to fix in the business, to get ready to try and build a new building, it allowed all of that.
And they probably loved talking to me more.
For sure.
No offense.
For sure.
I'm just saying.
That'd be a much better new member experience dealing with you than Steve.
It's amazing what I got away with, I mean,
people left terrified.
I just was
and filled out a membership form, and they left.
If I walk into this gym and it was you come around the corner in a tank top, sweaty, beard, whatever, and you show me the gym, or if it was Laura, I'd be a little more adamant to go with Laura and walk
Oh,
around.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I think that I wish we could go back and look at the
metrics.
Well, the metrics, but just the process of how, because that was back when I used to think that training was so much more important than everything else, and it really was. I think that was a huge issue that we won't even get into now, but I spent so much time training, and as soon as I'd get done, I'd run up and not, I'd be covered in chalk and sweat, and I'd sit down and we'd talk to people, and it was novel enough at the time, CrossFit was, that people just signed up. We got lucky. That would never happen now, nor would I ever. I think back and I'm like, wow, imagine if Agnew conducted an interview with his shirt off, eating lunch behind a desk. And I did that. That's how, when you look back to, I believe it was Andrew Drucker who came in, and I was eating a big salad. He just walked in. I just was like, okay, cool, I'll eat some lunch. Come on and sit down with me. If Agnew did that, I would throw him off the balcony. Like, it'd be game over. But the thing is, he would never do that. It's just the transition of how this process has evolved. It's really crazy to think. And I think so many people go through that same type of transition, but maybe they don't have the pieces of the puzzle around them to drag them out of those bad habits. Or they don't have someone strong enough that is assertive enough to say, hey, we need to make some changes. Here's what we're going to do. And I was lucky enough to have that. So I imagine it's like that Tim McGraw. My next 40
I want you
years.
sing it for us. Come on. This is a game that we play all the time because Steve does not,
No lyrics at all.
nor does he ever sound like the song.
Totally
at all.
Is it a different beat too?
It's not even. Agnew and I play a game all the time. Yeah.
Well, I will
It's
tell
one of
you
the most amazing games. You should try it with him. Have him sing a line from a song and see if you can guess it.
that when we were deployed and we were in Japan, I'm probably my picture is still up on the wall for probably the greatest karaoke MC ever. So I'm just saying. I mean, maybe it's your ears. I'm not sure. But anyway, my point was, like Tim McGraw talks about the next 40 years. I wonder what the next 10 years are going to be like,
For me or for you?
for LB.
What about for me?
We can please enter what you think my next 10 years are going to be like. Best answer wins. Maybe I'll follow it.
All right. Do you have any other questions for Miss Laura?
I don't think so. Maybe the next
Laura.
episode.
Yeah, we're going to continue
We'll
this.
continue
There's a
this one.
lot
There's a
more
lot
I
of
can
stuff.
pour out on vitality. Let us know if you want me to continue in another episode.
As I walk into my house at night and I'll get shh by my 7-year-old who's FaceTiming Miss Laura before dinner, and I'm like, I just got home. You remember me? But no, it's
Nope.
So that's it. Laura's right when she's done everything from. I mean, you're talking about the front desk and managing new members to accounting for every dollar that comes into Vitality to making sure, my 7-year-old has someone to take to, Grandparents' Day or whatever it is. So I think it's when you have people like that and when you have people that are as invested in your business as you are, it sure makes it easy to get up in the morning and come to work. And you just hope that, I tell her all the time, I hope that what I can do now will make up for those, I would like to say year, but it's definitely multiple years that she put up with me. And, if nothing
We're
else,
getting there. We're just scratching the surface here.
I think I'm going to redirect some of Philip's funding over to Laura anyway. So
Okay,
I
great.
think that'll work out well.
Good, because you got me frugal now anyway, so I don't care.
All right, guys, make sure, let us know what you think about this podcast. If you have questions for Laura, send them. We're going to test Philip's skills and see if we can splice in some pictures. Maybe we'll take you on a little tour of memory lane of old Vitality.
Send it. I'll put it in there.
Geez.
Yeah. So until next time, guys, thanks for listening.
Bye.